Non-duality is the realization that there is one indivisible consciousness that is the source and substance of everything. And this realization is beyond any conceived dimension of the mind. What that means is that it is simply present here and now as this. The ordinariness of this, the simplicity of this is what it is. It's just like this, that the realization of the one reality brings about a change in our relationships. The perceived entity me and the separation between the me and the other comes to an end. So the nature of relationships change, not just with the other person, but also with our thoughts, feelings, emotions. The other includes thoughts, feelings, emotions, sensations. So what we see is that everything is an arising. It arises in consciousness and then it merges back into that same consciousness. So whatever is observed in this movement is an illusion. Illusion in the sense that it is impermanent. The problem is that the intensity produces this resistance, and the resistance is the sense of separate existence, which we call as the ego or me, or also the thinking mind. So we are all the time fighting with our thoughts, with our emotions and sensations. But when this me is dropped, what remains is simply the awareness of this here and now. So everything is accepted the way it is. Many people do not like this idea of will of God, because usually we associate the term God with what has been taught traditionally. So we think that God is some powerful entity sitting up in the high heavens and sort of keeping a tab on its creations. So we think that there is one particular individual all-powerful God which is either all good or all evil, or so that is all the perception which is created by the dualistic mind. So the other way in which we can understand this concept of God's will is to see it in terms of cosmic law. Now there are physical laws of the universe that we know, and what happens is extremely intricate. It is very difficult to know this cosmic law in its entirety. So a majority of problem happens when we think that we know God's will. All the wars that happens because few people think that they know God's will. God's will cannot be known. The cosmic law cannot be known. The only thing is the awareness in which the cosmic law plays out. So when we say whether there is a free will or not, there is no yes or no answer to it. We do have a free will to make a choice. In a moment, we can choose, but that is where the free will ends. After that, what the outcome will be, whether it will be in accordance of our thinking or not, is not in our control. So once we understand that, once we accept that, that brings about an end to this thinking mind. So my outlook on this subject is very simple. Whether you follow the traditional teaching or you follow the contemporary teaching, everything has to be verified through your personal experience. This is what Ramesh Balsekar also said, that it has to match your personal experience. There is no other way. Unfortunately, there is no other way. If we, the problem is that if we go too much into the traditional text, we end up getting confused. The reason is that we have taken what is said there as our truth. We have not explored it, we have not questioned it. And somehow we have come to this point where the culture and the tradition doesn't allow us to question it. Whereas back in the early days, we had that option. Now what I see is a lot of polarization happening where we are not allowed to question the traditional teachings or concepts. But the conflict remains as the mind remains divided, fragmented. So it is important to question, and it is important to see things through and through as they are, rather than how this limited entity me is painting everything. Now in this age of social media, everything is so polarized as black and white. It is either pure good or pure evil. But life is not like that. Life is a spectrum. So life moves from this end to that end, and somewhere in the middle is your balance. So you only will decide what your balance is. The middle path will be decided by you, not by anybody else. Now, in my opinion, this direct path does not require the setup of a guru and disciple, because the guru and disciple are identifications. It is simply pointing to that truth which is your most natural experience. Now, with traditional teachings of Advaita, where it has been emphasized that a guru is required, what I feel is that every pointer that comes from a guru. So guru may not need to be in a human form. The guru can be in the form of a book. The guru can be in the form of a lecture, audio lecture, or it can be just any life experience. Any life experience. The experience of suffering, experience of pain, experience of happiness. The guru comes in various forms. So don't limit the guru to one form. The true guru is within, and it shines as the I principle. That itself leads to the truth. This path is not about the intellectual understanding. But that said, intellectual understanding of the concept also does bring a lot of relief. For example, in relationships, when you see yourself as the doer, you also see the other person as the doer. But again, what happens is that in that relationship dynamic, disagreements happen, which is the flow of life. It is bound to happen like that. Disagreements, confrontations are going to happen in relationships. But when you see the other as the doer, and you see yourself also as the doer, receiver, then there is this constant separation maintained between the two. So we start blaming the other for their actions. We say that they deliberately did this, did that. Whereas what the concept says is that every mind body organism is a product of their genetics and conditioning. And over both, they do not have any control. What was your life circumstance? How were you raised? How much care and nourishment you received from your caretakers, from your teachers, from your relatives, or from other people was not in your control. Some people received a lot of love and care, some people did not. So if you see what is going on, you don't see a person over there. That said, it does not imply that one has to love the other or get along with the other. That's not the thing. You can choose to be with people who you feel comfortable with and not have a relationship with people who you find difficult. That is completely your choice. That much free will is there for you to make the decision. After that, will you be peaceful or not? Will your relationships will be fulfilling or not? That is God's will or cosmic law. So when this concept is understood, the concept of non-doership, that there is no entity over there that is acting volitionally, and here also the entity me is presumed to act volitionally, but things are simply happening. There is no individual doer of anything. Now again, I don't think in terms of an enlightened person. The whole concept of enlightenment is not in my concept, because that assumes a certain image of a person who's all perfect, who's infallible, whereas the human conditioning does not allow us to be like that. So there are moments when I'm upset, there are moments when I'm happy. I cannot break this duality no matter how much realization I have. Even if you realize your true nature, you cannot separate that link, you cannot cut off that link. So yes, there will be good days, there will be bad days. The true understanding is the acceptance that there is no breaking of this duality. The good is accompanied with evil. The moral is accompanied with immoral. That is the nature of duality. And as far as the compassionate teacher is concerned, I would say two things. One is that you see yourself becoming more and more peaceful. It is not that you feel peaceful in the presence of the teacher. That does not mean that the teacher is genuine or the teacher has a genuine understanding. True measure is that you feel peaceful in your daily living when you are away from the teacher also. In the teacher's presence, of course, everybody would feel happy. But when you are away from the teacher, when you are out in the world doing your duties, the peace should be there as well. That is one thing. Second thing is that the teacher should have some level of empathy. When this understanding comes, there is a natural compassion, natural empathy within the person. So it is not just what the teacher is saying. Words do not mean much. But what is the behavior of the teacher? Is the teacher totally present to you? Is the teacher listening to you compassionately? Is the teacher understanding? These are all parts of empathy. So If there is a lack of empathy there, then that means that the understanding is not all that deep. Yes, why are we so divided and conflicted? You see, this is the nature of duality. It is the nature of me. Identification of oneself as a separate entity creates suffering. So, when there is the recognition of wholeness, we become the wholeness. It is not that wholeness comes to us as an object in our mind. So, it does not acquire any form, it does not acquire any dimension. It does not need any of that. It is simply this here and now, whatever is happening, the way it is perfect. The imperfections of nature is a part of its perfection. It is only our mind which discriminates between perfection, imperfection, good, evil. That is how the mind sees things. And the more divided and fragmented the mind is, the more black and white picture it has of things. So, as I mentioned earlier, you only have to find that middle ground. You know, in this path, which is a pathless path, we do not emphasize on a particular practice or a method. So, yes, as a general practice, meditation can be done. I mean, I myself meditate. But then, true meditation is acceptance of what is. The unconditional acceptance of things the way they are. There is no higher meditation. And that itself brings about the understanding.